Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jannavalada Girivanadari Jaya Gopi Jannavalada Girivanadari Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Dhanavara Girivanadari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivanadari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Girivanadari Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Girivanadari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Girivanadari Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Girivanadari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavalava Girivanadari Jaya Gopi Janavalava Girivanadari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Chila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Chila Prabhupada Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhupada Stotha Satri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Mat Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhupada Stotha Satri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Mat Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kalo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari. All glories to the sum of devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the sum of devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the sum of devotees, Hare Krishna. So, dear devotees, this is my first time giving class when I'm not in the temple and by myself in my room, so please forgive me. It's kind of awkward, but once I get into it, I think I'll be okay. We are reading from 5th canto, 1st chapter, verse 12. Na tasya kaschit tapasa vidyayava na yoga viryena manishayava naivarta dharmai Parataha svatova kritam vihantum tanu brihid vibhuyat na tasya kaschit tapasa vidyayava na yoga viryena manishayava naivarta dharmai parata svatova kritam vihantum tanu bri tanu brihid vibhuyat na tasya kaschit tapasa vidyayava na yoga viryena manishayava naivarta dharmai paratasvatova kritam vahantum tanu brihid vibhuyat. If anybody online wants to repeat, please feel free. Otherwise, I will go to the word for word.
Tasya kaschit tapasa vidyayava ayoga viryena manishayava aivarta dharma bharata svatova ritam vidhantum tanu vrid vibhutyat.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, word for word synonyms. Na, never. Tasya, his. Kaschit, anyone. Tapasa, by austerity. Vidyaya, by education. Va, or. Na, never. Yoga, by the power of mystic yoga. Viryena, by personal strength. Manishaya, by intelligence. Va, or. Na, never. Eva, certainly. Arta, by material opulence. Dharmai, by the power of religion. Parataha, by any external power. Svataha, by personal endeavor. Va, or. Kritam, the order. Vihantum, to avoid. Tanu, excuse me. Tanu Brihit, I can't pronounce this. Tanu Brit, a living entity who has accepted a material body. Vibhuyat, is able. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One cannot avoid the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not by the strength of severe austerities and an exalted Vedic education, or the power of mystic yoga, physical prowess, or intellectual activities. Nor can one use his power of religion, his material opulence, or any other means, either by himself or with the help of others, to defy the orders of the Supreme Lord. That is not possible for any living being, from Brahma down to the ant. Purport. In the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad, Yajnavalkya says to Gargi, the daughter of Gargamuni, Etasya va aksharasya prashasane Gargi Surya Chandramasau Vidhritau Tishtataha. My dear Gargi, everything is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the sun, the moon, and other controllers and demigods like Lord Brahma and King Indra are under his control. An ordinary human being or animal who has accepted a material body cannot go beyond the jurisdiction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's control. A material body includes senses. However, the sense activities of so-called scientists who try to be free from God's law or the laws of nature are useless. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Mama maya duratyaya. It is impossible to surpass the control of material nature, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is working behind it. Sometimes we are proud of our austerities, penances, and mystic yogic powers, but it is clearly stated herein that one cannot surpass the laws and directions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, either by dint of mystic power, by scientific education, or austerities and penances. It is impossible. The word manishaya, by intelligence, is of special significance, Priyavrata might argue that Lord Brahma was requesting him to accept family life and the responsibility for ruling a kingdom, although Narada Muni had advised him not to enter household life and be entangled in material affairs. Whom to accept would be a puzzle for Priyavrata, because both Lord Brahma and Narada Muni are authorities. Under the circumstances, the use of the word Manishaya is very appropriate, for it indicates that since both Narada Muni and Lord Brahma are authorized to give instruction, Priyavrata should neglect neither of them, but should use his intelligence to follow the advice of both. To solve such dilemmas, Srila Rupa Goswami has given a very clear conception of intelligence. He says, Anasaktasya vishayan yattarham upayujataha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. Vishayan, material affairs, should be accepted without attachment, and everything should be dovetailed with the service of the Lord. That is real intelligence, Manisha. Becoming a family man or king in the material world is not harmful if one accepts everything for Krishna's service. That necessitates clear intelligence. Mayavadi philosophers say, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. This material world is false, and only the absolute truth is real. However, an intelligent devotee in the line of Lord Brahma and the great sage Narada, or, in other words, in the Brahma Sampradaya, does not consider this world false. That which is created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be false, but using it for enjoyment is. Everything is meant to be enjoyed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 5:29. Bhuktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme proprietor and enjoyer, and therefore everything should be dovetailed for his enjoyment and service. Regardless of one's circumstances, favorable or unfavorable, one should use everything to serve the Supreme Lord. That is the perfect way to use our intelligence. Om Gyana Timinandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So again, Haribo to devotees. Hopefully I can say something that is pleasing and helpful to everyone today. So I want to speak about intelligence and aspects of intelligence, and at the end of the class I'll switch topics briefly at the end just to talk about how we can't avoid the orders of the Supreme Lord. And there's a pastime in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that I've been meditating on that kind of illustrates this for us. So this part of the purport really stood out to me. The word manishaya, by intelligence, is of special significance. Priyavrata was put into a bind. He wanted to remain a brahmachari. He wanted to remain renounced because, after all, he was Krishna conscious. He was a devotee of the Lord, and he was doing his thing. And he did not welcome the order to become king, to enter family life. And Narada Muni gave him instructions to be renounced, to practice austerities, to be Krishna conscious in that mood of renunciation and isolation from what we would call mundane activities. And so he was sticking with that, and he was happy with that. But then his father, Swayambhuva Manu, comes, and then Lord Brahma comes, and Narada Muni comes, and they're like, hey, you got to become king of the universe, which is a diametrically opposite, very stark juxtaposition of being a renunciate in the woods, right? And he did not welcome that. And so he was put in a bind. But it's significant, Prabhupada, in my opinion, it's very significant. Prabhupada points this out. Manishaya, he had to use his intelligence to follow the orders of both Brahma and Narada Muni. And under the circumstances, the use of the word manishaya is very appropriate, for it indicates that since both Narada Muni and Lord Brahma are authorized to give instruction, Priyavrata should neglect neither of them, but should use his intelligence to follow the advice of both. Yeah, so I was thinking we should really utilize our intelligence to serve better. And Srila Prabhupada wanted this. He used this phrase, independently thoughtful. He wanted the devotees of ISKCON to be independently thoughtful. That doesn't mean that they don't follow, that doesn't mean they don't take advice and guidance, but it means that they learn the Shastra, they learn the process, and they think for themselves, and that way they can use their intelligence to practice Krishna consciousness and navigate their way back to Godhead. Blind following is not advised. It is not favorable. Another interesting example of this is in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, where Ashvatthama murdered the sons of Draupadi. And Arjuna captured Ashvatthama, tied him up like an animal because he was acting like an animal, brought him back to their camp, and there was a debate. The men of the family wanted to kill Ashvatthama for committing such a heinous crime of killing innocent young boys. But Draupadi, being the saintly woman that she is, had compassion for him. It was Draupadi's sons, by the way, who were murdered. And she showed extreme compassion and empathy that she didn't want Ashvatthama's mother to feel the same pain that she was feeling. So this is an immense display of compassion. So Arjuna was put into a bind. Do we kill him or do we save his life? Even Krishna himself, if I remember correctly, favored killing Ashvatthama. But it's interesting, Arjuna used his intelligence in this situation. How can I please everyone in this situation? What is the middle path, the middle ground that I can follow that will appease everyone? And he found it. They didn't actually kill Ashvatthama. They didn't make him leave his body, but Arjuna did disfigure him severely to the point where he was ostracized from society. He was severely disgraced. He was basically, so societally, he was killed. But he wasn't actually forced to leave his body. So it was another, I'm sure there's more examples. If anyone thinks of more examples, please share with me, where we're put into a bind and we use our intelligence to find the middle path that is Krishna conscious to help us. So yeah, Krishna consciousness is a science after all, and we should utilize our intelligence to follow this science. So it is a science, and just like any other reputable science, it is independently verifiable and it is self-evident. So what do I mean by independently verifiable and self-evident? So any reputable science, say chemistry, for example, you read a peer-reviewed journal about an experiment. There's a hypothesis, there's a method, there's an objective, there's a conclusion, and there's a thorough process that you can follow, that those who did the experiment, this is exactly what they did. And it's independently verifiable because if you follow the process that they used, you should be able to come to the same conclusion. And this is exactly what Krishna consciousness is. You follow the process to the best of your ability, and you notice and understand and realize the results in your personal life yourself. It is also self-evident. If I'm given a book, a textbook on math, and I start reading it and studying it and practicing it, I will learn math. It is self-evident. The outcome comes simply by practicing it. So this is Krishna consciousness as well. It is a science. It is not dogma. It is not blind faith. And also, because it's a science, we should use our intelligence to analyze it and to progressively learn how to serve better. As you engage in the process, you will find that it is very real. I remember living in the ashram in Philadelphia when I moved in. I was practicing, and then after some time, I had the realization, oh, I'm thinking about Krishna like all the time. I'm thinking about service practically all the time, and I'm very, very happy and content because I'm doing that. And it's like, oh, this is a science. This is a scientific practice. So yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about intelligence. Let's clarify that intelligence does not depend on matter. Um, Material matter will and can have an effect on your intelligence, but it also is not completely dependent on material matter. Some people are literally born without brain tissue and they don't even know it. There's an example Devamrita Swami mentions in Searching for Vedic India. These are severe cases, but they're very real and they're well documented that people are literally born without huge portions of their brain tissue and they go about their life as normal and they had no idea about it because whatever space is absent of brain tissue is filled with cerebral spinal fluid. So it's not vacant, it's not a vacuum, but the tissue that should be there is not there, and yet they go about their lives as normal and they have no idea about it until one day they get a CAT scan or a PET scan or something like that, an MRI, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's this huge gap in your skull and nobody knew about it. Um, I'm bringing up this point because intelligence is not completely dependent on matter, and I could use the excuse that I was born with this body and I have this it affects my intelligence, and therefore I should just blindly follow. This is actually a very poor excuse that I could use because your intelligence is not completely dependent on matter. There's a nice example in the Shastra in the fourth canto where Daksha made a huge offense to Lord Shiva. His head was removed and replaced with that of a goat, but his intelligence remained, his identity remained, which clearly indicates in the Bhagavatam that intelligence is not dependent on material matter completely. And similarly, we have modern scientific evidence of this as well. So in the fourth canto, seventh chapter, verse 5, in a purport, Prabhupada says, it appears from the exchange of Daksha's head that the modern scientific theory that the brain substance is the cause of all intelligent work is not valid. The brain substance of Daksha and that of a goat are different, but Daksha still acted like himself, even though his head was replaced by that of a goat. The conclusion is that it is the particular consciousness of an individual's soul which acts. The brain substance is only an instrument which has nothing to do with real intelligence. The real intelligence, mind, and consciousness are part of the particular individual soul. It will be found in the verses ahead that after Daksha's head was replaced by the goat's head, he was as intelligent as he had previously been. He prayed very nicely to satisfy Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. Therefore, it is definitely concluded that the brain substance is not the center of intelligence. It is the consciousness of a particular soul that works intelligently. The whole movement of Krishna consciousness is to purify the consciousness. It doesn't matter what kind of brain one has, because if he simply transfers his consciousness from matter to Krishna, his life will become successful. So here you go. Intelligence is not completely dependent on matter. And every one of us can use our intelligence to serve better, to advance in Krishna consciousness, no matter what our circumstances. Granted, some people will have more difficulty than others. That is completely understandable. That is expected. But my point is that anybody can use their intelligence, and they should. So there's two sentences that Prabhupada says in the purport that really stand out. The real intelligence, mind, and consciousness are part of the particular individual's soul. Therefore, it is definitely concluded the brain substance is not the center of intelligence. It is the consciousness of a particular soul that works intelligently. So we can understand from this that intelligence is actually emanating from the spirit soul itself. Brain tissue is just a material instrument in which intelligence might be manifested through, I guess you could say. but it's really the spirit soul that has intelligence. The intelligence actually emanates from from the jiva, from the spirit soul. Okay, so if the origin of intelligence is actual spirit, right? So what does the intelligence do when it comes in contact with the material energy? Because yes, the intelligence might emanate from the spirit soul, but it's clear that when my body is sick, for example, my intelligence will not work as well as when I'm healthy, right? So something's going on there. Um, so what happens to the intelligence when it comes into contact with material energy? So it's basically going to be manifested through material energy because we are conditioned. But as we become liberated from material energy, we revert back to our original intelligence, which is pure and which emanates from the soul, and it will not be affected if we are fully liberated. It will not be affected by material energy. It will not be affected by our body. So that's something we can look forward to. Okay, so what happens to the intelligence as it comes in contact with material energy? In the third canto, 26th chapter, verse 29, I don't know for certain, but I'm guessing this is Lord Kapila Dev speaking to Devahuti. It says 3:26-29. By transformation of the false ego in passion, intelligence takes birth, O virtuous lady. The functions of intelligence are to help in ascertaining the nature of objects when they come into view and to help the senses. So this is what the intelligence is for. It is for discrimination, for analyzing objects, analyzing ideas, and making distinctions amongst them. What is good, what is bad, what is neutral, what can I use, what shouldn't be used. This is intelligence, and they are supposed to help the senses. Okay, in the purport, Prabhupada says, intelligence is the discriminating power to understand an object, and it helps the senses make choices. Therefore, intelligence is supposed to be the master of the senses. The perfection of intelligence is attained when one becomes fixed in the activities of Krishna consciousness. By the proper use of intelligence, one's consciousness is expanded, and the ultimate expansion of consciousness is Krishna consciousness. Okay, I digressed a little. I had a thorough plan of what I wanted to talk about, but now that I'm talking about it, other ideas are coming to my mind. Let me clarify real quick. So intelligence actually emanates from the spirit soul, but when we come in contact with material energy, what happens? False ego is generated. I am matter. I am connected with matter. I am connected to this material universe. False ego, right? False ego will, in the mode of passion, generates material intelligence. So you already have intelligence, but it becomes contaminated through your false ego, through the mode of passion. Then material intelligence takes birth, right? It still acts as intelligence. The intelligence will act with discriminating power, but it will be contaminated by material energy, and it will seek material energy instead of seeking Krishna, the Lord. Okay. Now that I got past the digression, I'll go back. The sentence in the purport is really nice. The perfection of intelligence is attained when one becomes fixed in the activities of Krishna consciousness. By the proper use of intelligence, one's consciousness is expanded, and the ultimate expansion of consciousness is Krishna consciousness. So this is nice. We can see there's a reciprocal relationship of using your intelligence to become Krishna conscious. And then as you become Krishna conscious, this brings the highest intelligence. So you can see a reciprocal building, a reciprocal elevation of intelligence. Use the intelligence that you have, because everyone has it, every living entity has it. Use your intelligence to study the Shastra, to follow the process of Krishna consciousness, to try to focus to the best of your ability on hearing the Maha Mantra and let it enter your heart, following the orders of your spiritual master. Doing these, using the intelligence that you have to become Krishna conscious, what happens? The intelligence becomes purified of its material contamination, and it becomes spiritualized. And when this happens, you become more Krishna conscious. What's he say? The proper use of intelligence By proper use of intelligence, one's consciousness is expanded. So we can utilize it to become more Krishna conscious. And when this happens, you become more intelligent. Okay. So let's move on to what are some functions of the intelligence according to the Bhagavatam. So in the third canto, 26th chapter, verse 30, it says, doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, and sleep, as determined by their different functions, are said to be the distinct characteristics of intelligence. Okay, so these are the functions of intelligence. First one is doubt. You're presented with information and you doubt whether it's correct. You analyze it and you say, oh, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's real. This is a sign of intelligence. So then Prabhupada's use of English always fascinates me. He uses the word misapprehension and correct apprehension. So I'll translate it just so it makes more sense to me. It's to understand and misunderstand something. So there's doubt, understanding, misunderstanding. These are functions of the intelligence. And then there's memory. And then there's sleep. And it's interesting in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that without proper sleep, one's intelligence cannot function properly. So these are some of the characteristics of what our intelligence does. These are the functions of our intelligence, whether it's material or spiritual. This is what we're dealing with. These are the functions of the intelligence. Okay, in the purport, Prabhupada says doubt is one of the important functions of intelligence. Blind acceptance of something does not give evidence of intelligence. So this goes back to what I was saying. Blind following is not helpful for you or for anyone else. I'm speaking to myself, please forgive me. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. Doubt is inside of your intelligence, right? I remember when I first read the Bhagavad Gita, it was so abstract, it was so distant from anything else I've ever read before. But I remember, and so I had doubt. I mean, I was trained as a scientist. I definitely had a lot of healthy skepticism, right? This is a sign of intelligence. But I remember reading and thinking to myself, I will read this with the acceptance that it's possible that what is in this book is real and it's true. And so I did that, and here I am today. It completely changed my life. Blind acceptance is not something that is not good for, it's not healthy. Prabhupada wants us to be independently thoughtful, to use our intelligence to follow the process of Krishna consciousness. Okay, continuing the purport. Therefore, the word samshaya is very important. In order to cultivate intelligence, one should be doubtful in the beginning. By intelligence only can one understand things as they are. By intelligence only can one understand whether or not he is the body. So Prabhupada's pointing out the the importance of intelligence in this process of Krishna consciousness. We have it and we should utilize it to understand Krishna, to understand the process of Krishna consciousness. This will help us. Okay, and he mentions in this purport, sleep is also necessary to keep the intelligence in working order. If there is no sleep, the brain cannot work nicely. In Bhagavad Gita, it is especially mentioned that persons who regulate eating, sleeping, and other necessities of the body in the proper proportion become very successful in the yoga process. So this is a wonderful example of Yukta Vairagya here. We're using the body to become more Krishna conscious, but we're not attached to it. We're doing everything in moderation, in balance. And as I said, when we become fully liberated, your intelligence won't be dependent on the states of the material body. But let's face it, many of us are not fully liberated yet. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take mercy to get to that point. So we should take care of the equipment that we have that is intelligent, to utilize our equipment so we can become more Krishna conscious. Okay, so now that I talked about some functions of the intelligence, the importance of it, let's talk about what are some threats to our intelligence? What will compromise our intelligence? So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, Krishna says, starting at text 61, he says, one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. But a person free from all attachment and aversion is able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom, can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. So we see a process here of our intelligence being contaminated and diverting us from the ultimate goal. So Krishna says, one who fixes his consciousness on Krishna, excuse me, if we fix our consciousness on Krishna, that is a sign of a man with steady intelligence. We are focusing on the Supreme Lord. We are focusing our relationship with him and his devotees. We're focusing on devotional service. That is proper use of intelligence. That is a sign of a man in steady intelligence. What threatens us is our attachment, our obsession with material objects. And when I say material objects, I also include implying subtle objects, subtle material energy, such as lust, anger, all those things. So in text 62, it says contemplating on the objects of the senses. So I would replace this word contemplating with ruminating. Ruminating is a word often used in psychology. This ruminating, this obsession on the sense objects, whether they be gross or subtle. If we constantly dwell on them and let that cycle build up in our mind, that will develop attachment for those objects. And from such an attachment, lust will develop. And when lust develops, anger will inevitably arise. And then from anger, there's delusion, and delusion disturbs your memory. All these things add up to your intelligence being lost. So what is the root of it? The root of it is contemplating the objects of the senses, being attached to gratifying our material senses. And let's face it, we have material bodies. Many of us are not at that level yet. We will ruminate on the sense objects. That's inevitable. As time progresses, we will get better at it. But for now, it happens. Yet the point I'm trying to make is there should be balance. If you see that if there's rumination going on and you catch yourself, great. Chant, read, talk to a devotee, do something that engages your senses in spiritual subject matter. To sum it up, rumination, lust, anger, all these things can contaminate and compromise our intelligence. And in text 64 really stands out to me, attachment and aversion divert us. So if we become attachment, it is obvious if we're attached to material sense objects, that will divert us. If we're too attached, we'll get sucked into it and we won't be able to focus on Krishna. The opposite is also true. If we're disgusted by a certain object or a certain conception of material enjoyment, that also will distract us from Krishna. We have to follow a balanced middle path between these things. Okay, there's a nice illustration in the 4th canto of this intelligence being compromised by sense objects and our attachment, our obsession with gratifying the senses. This is in the 4th canto, 22nd chapter, verse 30. When one's mind and senses are attracted to sense objects for enjoyment, the mind becomes agitated. As a result of continually thinking of sense objects, one's real consciousness almost becomes lost, like the water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass straws on its banks. So we're given a nice imagery here. Imagine a nice, clear, pristine lake. And that is our consciousness. And there's a specific amount of water in it. There's a fixed quantity of water in it, right? And the grass, the reeds along the banks of it are sucking up this water. They're using that water. And these grass reeds can be compared to our material desires. If we get too caught up in our material desires, if we become imbalanced in our rumination on material desires, these straws will suck the water up. It'll drain our consciousness and put our consciousness into focusing on material energy. And obviously, there's only two things. There's Krishna, and then there's this material energy that we're addicted to. So if our energy is being too much imbalanced, too much focused on the material energy, naturally Krishna is going to be neglected and we're going to be distracted, right? Okay, in the purport, Prabhupada says, when the mind is allowed to think of sense gratification continuously, I want to point out that if we're not completely liberated yet, it will happen. But the point is to try to be balanced. If it's happening continuously, Prabhupada says, it becomes the cause of our material bondage. If our mind is simply filled with sense gratification, even though we want Krishna consciousness, by continuous practice, we cannot forget the subject matter of sense gratification. The example given here is very appropriate. If a big lake is covered all around by long kusha grass, just like columns, the waters dry up. Similarly, when the big columns of material desire increase, the water of consciousness is dried up. So, yeah, I'll just reemphasize the point of balance. If we accept where we're at, most of us will probably see that we're not fully there yet, and material desires will come up because we still have these bodies. But the point is that if we want our intelligence to be strong, if we want our intelligence to be utilized in Krishna consciousness and make us more Krishna conscious, we should be mindful not to let an imbalance occur. And if an imbalance does occur, what do you have to do to become balanced again? When we too much dwell, when we too much ruminate on sense gratification, our consciousness will be drained. We will be using our intelligence in the wrong way. Okay, running out of time, I want to switch briefly to another topic. In this pastime, Priyarata is engaged in service, but he is being requested to do another service, which to him apparently is not as nice. But the Lord's order cannot be denied by anyone, including devotees. So it's obvious in the material world, you cannot defy the laws of God. If you argue with an atheist, you'll spend a lot of time trying to prove that God exists. But I'm speaking to devotees right now. We can all understand that if anyone has any real intelligence, you can understand that there is a supreme Lord, there is a supreme intelligence behind everything. And the laws of God are impassable unless he wants to allow you to pass them. It's up to him. But it's just like gravity. If you throw something in the air and you're standing on earth, you throw something in the air, it's going to come back down. That is a law. It is inescapable. So let's expand this into Krishna consciousness as well. If Krishna wants something and you want it to be a different way, well, you can't surpass Krishna's desires. However, it is a reciprocal, it's a loving relationship, right? Like Prabhupada said, he wanted to spread Krishna consciousness as a wealthy man. He said that he had an argument with Krishna, and Krishna won. Krishna wanted Prabhupada to spread Krishna consciousness as a penniless man. So the Lord's desires cannot be surpassed. However, that doesn't mean that Krishna consciousness or Krishna or his devotees are slave drivers. We're not authoritarians. They're not going to force you to do something. And if they are forcing you to do something, something's very seriously wrong. This is voluntary. It's about love. Love is voluntary. And that's what Krishna wants. Krishna has everything except your love. And so there's a reciprocal relationship there. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, I've been thinking about these things because of I mean, this verse brings it up, but I've been meditating on the pastime of Sanatana Goswami when he goes from Mathura to Jagannath Puri to visit Lord Chaitanya, and he went to the Jharkhand forest and he got sick. He was fasting and he drank some contaminated water, and he had these itching sores all over his body, and they would ooze pus and other bodily fluids. And he was very disturbed by this. It doesn't say this directly in the CC, but from my understanding, it can be implied he felt shameful. He felt that, due to my karma, due to my own sinful decisions, this body is disgusting and it impedes me of doing service. And what I want most is to just serve Krishna directly. So let me destroy this body. When he goes to Jagannath Puri, he actually planned on committing suicide by jumping beneath the cart, Lord Jagannath's cart, and killing himself in this way. But Lord Chaitanya corrected him. So he wanted to do that. He wanted to be directly with Krishna, engaged in direct service, and he thought by destroying this body, I will be able to do that directly. Keep in mind, this is Sanatana Goswami. He is Nitya Siddha. He is simply playing out a pastime for our benefit. He's not actually materially conditioned, but he's put in these scenarios to teach us how to be devotees, to go back to Godhead. So anyway, Lord Chaitanya, being omniscient, knew the desire in Sanatana Goswami's heart, and he pointed out, Lord Chaitanya said, if I could reach Krishna by killing myself, I would have killed myself billions and billions of times before. I would kill my body over and over again to be with Krishna. But he says that's not possible. You can't do it that way. He mentions that suicide is in the mode of ignorance, and nobody can reach Krishna in the lower modes. One has to go to the mode of goodness first and then transcend. And I'm bringing this point up because Sanatana Goswami is a devotee, and he had an idea in mind of how he wanted to obtain Krishna. But Lord Chaitanya told him, no, you have to stay here because I have a plan. Your body actually doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me because you are surrendered to me. And I have a plan. I want you to write Vaishnava literature. I want you to excavate the sites of pilgrimage in Vrindavan. I want you to preach. There's so many things that I want to do using your body, using you as an instrument. And if you destroy your body, you're denying my desire. And this is an example of the reciprocal relationship. We want a loving relationship with the Lord. And just like any other relationship, we have to contemplate what is the desire of our beloved, right? If the beloved wants a certain something, then one should be conscious of it, and one should try to please in that way, right? And so sometimes we might have ideas about how we want to serve, and but Krishna might show us that, no, I actually want you to do it a different way. And that might cause some frustration or some pain, but this is love. This is the advancement of Krishna consciousness. We learn to be persons. We learn to interact personally with other living entities and with the ultimate living entity, who is Krishna. Okay, so that's all I had. If anybody has any questions or comments or corrections, please share. I see a hand by Kaylee. Yes, Kaylee.
Hi, Krishna. Thank you for the class. It was really sweet. A lot of takeaway things and kind of quite a bit of questions, given there's time and no one else has questions. But so one, I was thinking you were mentioning doubts as something as a good thing, but when can it become, because it can become kind of unhealthy if we're constantly doubting everything. So my question is, like, at one point, because we may have a doubt and express that, and we get a response that may not be satisfying, when do we, try to keep on doubting or just accept? Like, where is that balance?
Everybody's personal experience is personal. To say when, I mean, first of all, it's amazing that if anyone can notice that there's imbalance, that in of itself is glorious, because then you can actually do something. Specifically in everyone's individual scenarios, that will depend. I mean, this is why it's very helpful to have a mentor, someone you can trust, someone who you admire, someone who you want to be more like. You can see that they're balanced, you can see that they're Krishna conscious, who can help you, because everyone's life is individual and everybody's scenarios are specific to them, right? So yeah, it helps to have somebody who can guide you through that. But yeah, I mean, doubting, like you said, doubting is good, but if it's too much, then it can become an imbalance and unhealthy. So yeah, I think having a mentor, someone you can trust, would be very helpful. And of course, strengthening your intelligence, like I said, avoiding certain things, being attracted to certain things, and studying the Shastra, not just reading, but really studying it will help immensely. I don't know if this is helpful, but that's
Yes. No, thank you. That was really helpful. Like this point you say that someone look for a mentor or someone that inspires us, because that is a big difference. Like if we take guidance from someone who doesn't necessarily inspire us, we might be less inclined to accept what they are saying. So I
yes.
appreciate that point. Also, I just want to make a quick comment. I like how you were talking about the subtle material elements. Also, I was reading in the Bhagavatam in Canto 1, Chapter 3. It's talking about how this subtle mind, the subtle body, which is the mind, intelligence, ego, this is the reason that we are born again. Like the main reason. So it's not necessarily what we are physically doing or saying. It's even what our mind is becoming attached to. It's so crazy. These are the things that keep us in this world. So I just want to make that point. And then also another question, you were talking about this, the contemplation on the senses, and then develops lust or attachment, and then from attachment to lust. And then so these points can understand, but can you explain the process from lust to anger? Is it only like if we don't have that lust satisfied when we get angry? Can we like stop it right there, or is it like inevitable? Like what is that process from going from lust to anger?
Well, to comment on the first thing you said, yes, thank you for bringing up about the subtle points. You'll find that your attachment to this material world in all of its multifaceted expansions are subtle. They're subtle things. As you advance more, you'll see this more and more. Your question is about going from lust to anger. Yeah, I mean, it is possible to acknowledge lust and not become angry if you engage. If there's a lusty desire and you engage in it, anger will inevitably arise. Even if you don't indulge in it, anger might still arise. But as we make advancement, though, we'll be able to control these things. They will become less and less powerful. When we first start, these things are so extremely powerful that they can carry us away. They can carry away our motivation too. But as one sticks to the process, to stick to the process, to chant with all your heart, chant with all your attention to the best of your ability. Really, really pour your heart into your japa. That really makes us quick, serious advancement. But yeah, as time progresses, these things will diminish. It is possible to reduce the anger, to eventually not experience it. Really, depending, it is possible, is my point, but it takes time.
Okay.
Is
Thank
that-
you. Yeah, I was just one quick thought on that. I was thinking that maybe the anger will not really arise or not so much if that like level of attachment is not there. Like if we're not overly attached to whatever sense object we're focusing on, then maybe the lust can still come, but maybe the anger is less or something like that. I don't know, just a thought, but thank you for those points.
That is, you are using your intelligence. You are
Trying.
speculating in an intelligent way of what could be. That is nice.
Thank you. Thanks for your thoughts and insights. Appreciate it.
Very well, thank you.
Sure.
Does anybody else have anything?
Prabhu, I'd like to thank you for a really nice class. It was thought-provoking and engaging. I like this analysis of intelligence, something I've thought about for years and things to think about. I had a bunch of thoughts and questions, but their lordships have blessed us with their darshans, so I guess we should. I'm fascinated by this topic of intelligence. Still trying to understand more clearly how it is that a subtle element, intelligence, it's part of the subtle body, the three subtle elements: mind, intelligence, ego. But somehow it interacts with the gross elements, and obviously that's the case. There's an interaction between all of the material elements. Precisely what that mechanism is, how that works, is something that I've been trying to understand more clearly over the years, and it remains foggy. But you presented some angles today that help to shed a little more light on some of those processes. I think it's. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this. I'm thinking that in general, people have a misconception of what actually is intelligence, or what we often think of as intelligence is not really intelligence as it is understood from the Vedic conception. Srila Prabhupada describes intelligence as being essentially a power of fine discrimination, whereas a common conception of intelligence is sometimes the ability to retain and recall facts and figures, things like this. So that seems to me to be a different type of function. That's not necessarily intelligence. It's another thing. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you. I can imagine over the years you spent a lot of time in contemplation and reading on this subject matter. I admire that, because I imagine I'll be doing the same thing. Yeah, I mean, Prabhupada mentions in that one verse, let's see, in 3:26:30, doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, and sleep, as determined by their different functions, are said to be the distinct characteristics of intelligence. Yeah, I get what you're saying. It seems like in the world today, there's this conception that if you can retain facts and just spit them out, that is intelligence. But yeah, it seems that that is just one aspect of intelligence, real intelligence. Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that this power to the power of discernment, to be able to distinguish between this and that, seems to be more of a more powerful and more important aspect of intelligence, because I mean, let's face it, we forget things so quickly and so easily. What is the real use of memory anyway? but having the ability to discern between one thing and the other. I mean, Prabhupada mentions that real intelligence is the ability to discern between what is material and what is spiritual, right? So yeah, I agree. Memory appears to be an aspect of intelligence, but yeah, it seems to me the discernment ability, power seems to be more important. Yeah. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you again. That was a great class, well prepared, and it's a nice presentation, well planned out. I enjoyed that ride. That was good. Thanks. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'm glad it was fun for you. I'm glad it was enjoyable for you. Okay, I believe they're doing Guru Puja now. Perhaps we should end here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Thank you, devotees, for allowing me the chance to speak. Thank you for your comments and questions. Hare Krishna.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Vakati Sadma Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Vakati Sadma Bando Savadana Mate Bandamoi Savadana Mate Jarakrastade Sa Hebalatoriya Jai Jarakrastade Sa Hebalatoriya Jai Krishna Prapti Jai Krishna Prapti Jai Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chittete Koriya Kya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chittete Koriya Kya Harna Kori Homane Hasha Harna Kori Asha Guru Charane Este Uttama Daki Prasad Asha Prasad Puresa Asha Chakudana diloje, jame jame prabhu se. Chakudana diloje, jame jame prabhu se. Divya gyan hrive prokashito. Divya gyan hrive prokashito. Prema bhakti javote javita. Prema bhakti joy te adigya tacha jate Vedegai tare chita Vedegai jata Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Jamara Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Jamara Lokana Lokera Jivana Lokana Lokera Jivana Prabhu Korte Amore Pada Jaya Prabhu Koradoya De Amore Pada Jaya Prabhu Koradoya Pada Jaya Shila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Namo Shampadaya Krishna Krishna Namo Shampadaya Krishna Mane Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nami Namaste Sarasvati Deva Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Namaste Sarasvati Deva Gauravani Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Hara Shiva Sati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Hara Shiva Sati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, I give the heart once. I don't Defy,